Hi, welcome JNAM's parents. This is Mrs. Gomez, your school social worker. Thank you for joining our presentation today on depression. We wanted to bring this topic up now because we tend to see a spike in symptoms before the holiday season. I hope you will find this information helpful. Si necesita esta información en español, tenemos la presentación en español también, so pueden ver ese video. Additionally, if you have any questions or concerns, contact me using my email, which will be given to you at the end of this video. So with us today, we have two presenters. We have Ms. Amber Rushing from USC and also Ms. Jen Ribeiro from USC as well. So welcome them. And on the agenda today, we're going to be reviewing what is depression, and we'll really get into the statistics and data, what depression looks like in adults and children. Additionally, we'll review self-harm and suicidality and review some treatment and resources.
Today we're going to discuss what is depression. It's a period of at least 2 weeks when a person can be experiencing at least one or more of the symptoms of depression or depressed mood. So for example, having a depressed mood most of the day, nearly every day, markedly diminished interest or pleasure in daily activities. It could even be significant weight loss when not dieting, or weight gain, increasing of appetite nearly every day. In addition, there can also be a slowing down of physical movement, so not really being very active, fatigue or loss of energy nearly every day, feelings of worthlessness or excessive inappropriate guilt nearly every day. In addition, diminished ability to think or concentrate. Someone might even be indecisive nearly every day. In addition to that, recurrent thoughts of death or like suicidal ideation without a specific plan, or suicide attempt of a specific plan for committing suicide. In order to receive a diagnosis of depression, these symptoms must cause the individual significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or school. These symptoms must also not be a result of substance abuse or any other medical condition. Now we're going to look at prevalence of depression in adults in the US. These statistics are from 2017, so they're fairly recent, but there may be some changes. Figure 1 shows the past year prevalence with adults in the US who are 18 years or older. An estimated 17.3 million adults in the US had at least one major depressive episode. This number represents 7.1% of all US adults. The prevalence of major depressive episode was higher among adult females at 8.7% compared to males at 5.3%. The prevalence of adults with major depressive episodes was among the highest in individuals ages 18 to 25 years at 13.1%. And the prevalence of major depressive episodes was highest among adults reporting 2 or more races at 11.3%. In this slide, we discuss treatment of depression in adults. So again, this is for major depressive episodes as of 2017. 6% of the population received medication only. Health professional and medication, so seeking out maybe like a psychiatrist or in addition psychologist or therapist at 44%. health professional only, so that might be like therapy or group individual counseling, things like that, at 15%, and then 35% with no treatment at all. In this slide, we look at prevalence of major depression episodes among adolescents, among US adolescents as of 2017. An estimated 3.2 million adolescents ages 12 to 17 in the United States had at least one major depressive disorder or episode. This number represented 13.3% of US population ages 12 to 17. And in this slide, the pie graph shows 29% without severe impairment, whereas 71% with severe impairment. This slide discussed treatment of depression in adolescents as of 2017 in the US. There was 2.4% that received medication only, 17.9% received health professional and medication. So again, that could be individual therapy, meeting with a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and receiving medication treatment at 17.9%. Health professional only, so again, individual therapy, group counseling, 19.6%. However, the largest number is no treatment at 60.1%. Okay, sometimes symptoms may look different in children and adolescents, and the symptoms may include constantly feeling sad, anxious, or even empty, feelings of hopelessness, or like everything is going wrong. They may even spend more time alone, so isolating, withdrawing from friends and family. Their grades may drop as well. Loss of interest in activities and hobbies that they used to enjoy. Sleeping and eating habits may change, so they may be sleeping more or less than usual, or always even feeling tired, having less energy than normal, restlessness or trouble sitting still, feeling like they have trouble concentrating, remembering information, or making decisions. Or they may complain of aches and pains or headaches or unexplained stomach problems or thoughts of dying or suicide. They may talk about that. Or they may have self-harm or thoughts of harming themselves. In this slide, we're going to discuss depression now during COVID-19 pandemic. Children and teens react differently, and they also react to what they see from the adults around them. When parents or caregivers deal with COVID-19 calmly and confidently, they can provide the best support for their children. Parents can reassure their children, especially helping them be prepared and understanding what's going on. There may be some symptoms to look for in your children during this time that may not have happened before. For example, bedwetting, toilet accidents, unexplained, something that they may have outgrown in the past, excessive worry or sadness, unhealthy eating habits or sleeping habits, acting irritable or acting out, especially in teens. In addition, you may see poor school performance or the feeling of avoiding school at all. They may have difficulty paying attention and concentrating. It's important to talk to your children about COVID and answer questions and share facts about COVID-19 with your children as well. You can reassure them that they're safe and let them know it's okay if they feel upset. Share with them how you deal with your own stress so that they can learn from you on how to cope with stress. Limit your family's exposure to news coverage of the event, including social media. Try to keep up with regular routines. Now, if schools are closed, try and create a schedule for learning activities and relaxing or fun activities. Be a role model. Take breaks. Get plenty of sleep. Exercise and eat well. Connect with your friends and family members, perhaps FaceTime or Zoom. Spending time with your children in meaningful activities, reading together, exercising, maybe playing board games, and also take care of your mental health during these stressful times. Depression in adults. Being unhappy isn't the same thing as being depressed. Determine if it's persistent, an unshakable feeling that you can't exactly explain, and perhaps review the warning signs that were mentioned in the previous slides, or seek out professional help from a mental health professional.
So now we're going to talk about symptoms of depression in adults. And we've identified 8 particular symptoms that stand out, and we'll go through each of these. The first is having a hopeless outlook. So having a hopeless or perhaps helpless outlook in your life is probably the most common symptom of depression. Similarly, feelings of worthlessness or self-hate or inappropriate guilt feelings are also an identifier. Recurring thoughts that may be vocalized as, what's the point of it all, or it's all my fault, definitely align with this particular symptom. The second is lost interest. So depression is very capable of taking the pleasure or enjoyment out of the things that you love. Perhaps a loss of interest or withdrawal from activities that you once looked forward to, perhaps hobbies or going out with friends, or at least talking to friends, and maybe even sports. All of those may be a sign that there's some depressive major symptom disorder that's coming about. Another area in terms of adults specifically is where you may lose interest is having intimacy in relationships. Third on the list is increased fatigue and sleep problems. So depression often comes with a lack of energy and an overwhelming sense of fatigue, which can really be debilitating because it does affect your day-to-day functioning. So this lack of energy and feeling of fatigue could lead to excessive sleeping. Also, depression concurrently is linked with insomnia. So not only on the one side do we have excessive sleeping, but insomnia on the other, and they kind of work hand in hand. The lack of quality and restful sleep actually leads to anxiety, which is our 4th symptom of depression in adults. So while depression hasn't been linked in research to actually cause anxiety, the two conditions, because of the other symptoms that we are discussing today, often occur together. Anxiety looks like nervousness, restlessness, feelings of panic or dread, physical symptoms, rapid heartbeat and rapid breathing, trembling or twitching, and being able to, or not being able to focus clearly or have a lot of clarity in thought. The 5th symptom is irritability. Depression, actually, it affects both the male sex and female sex differently. Research does show us that men with depression may have more symptoms of irritability, but that irritability is definitely there. Also, that irritability can lead to riskier behavior, substance abuse, or anger that's misplaced. Moving on into the 6th symptom is a change in appetite and weight. So weight and appetite fluctuates for people who are experiencing depression. It is different in each person. Some people may find that they have an increased appetite and gain weight as a result of their depression, while others won't be hungry at all, and you see signs of losing weight, especially excessively. So one indication of whether dietary changes are related to depression is if they're intentional or not. If they're not, it means that if they're not intentional, then that means that it may be caused by the depression. 7th on the list is uncontrollable emotions. So 1 minute you may be feeling particularly angry, and the next minute you may be crying. uncontrollably. So if there's nothing externally that's really causing those changes in emotion, but you're still experiencing emotional swings up or down, then depression could be the cause. And then finally, the eighth symptom on the list to look out for is looking at death. Depression, especially depending on the severity, is sometimes connected with suicide. And so we'll be talking more about how to recognize those warning signs. So next we're going to talk about depression in children. So what's the difference between a child feeling sad or just being in a bad mood and a child feeling depressed? There is a misconception that children are incapable of experiencing depression, but that's actually not true. So it is normal for children to feel sad, down, or irritated, and to really be in a bad mood from time to time. But when those negative feelings and thoughts, they actually linger for long periods of time, and they begin to impact a child being able to function in the day-to-day, that could be a sign of depression. So depression, as we've discussed, is really a mood disorder. And so in children, the main sign is when the sadness, the discouragement, or the irritability lasts for weeks, months, or sometimes even longer. That other sign with children in depression is really negative thinking. So focusing on problems and faults, being really critical externally to the people around them, or being self-critical and complaining a lot. And again, the biggest distinction is looking at that time-wise. How long has it been happening? So depression in children really interferes with energy, concentration, sleep, and appetite. And children with depression, they may actually lose interest in their activities and schoolwork. Similar to adults, they may be excessively tired or just give up easily on things and ultimately withdraw from friends and family. When children have depression, it's actually harder for them to make an effort to do much of anything, even when doing things they used to enjoy. They may feel worthless, rejected, and or unlovable. And it makes those everyday problems really more difficult and bigger than they actually are. In some situations, when depression is severe enough in children, it can lead to self-harm or suicide, which we'll continue to talk about today. Children, because they may not understand those emotions, may actually choose to ignore it, hide it, or even deny it. And they may not even know that they're depressed at all. Older children, adolescents and teenagers may feel like they just don't want any help at all. They want to try to figure it out independently or only talk to their friends about it. The best thing we can do as parents is to just listen to them, offer our support, and show love and affection. If we suspect that there might, as parents, that there might be something wrong with our children and it could be depression, the best thing is to take them to the doctor or to a mental health professional to determine more. So next we're going to go into self-harm. So what is self-harm? So self-harm or self-injury, which is another way to call it, is defined as the intentional, direct injuring of body tissue done with or without suicidal intent. There are many misconceptions about self-injury. Among them are that people who self-injure are just trying to commit suicide. But in reality, self-injury is the act of physically hurting yourself on purpose, not necessarily with the intent of committing suicide. So a common method with self-harm and self-injury is cutting yourself with a sharp object. Some people feel an impulse to cause burning, perhaps to pull out their hair, pick at wounds, which prevents them from healing. And sometimes in extreme cases, we can see broken bones as well. So what to know about self-harm? So self-harm, self-injury transcends gender, age, religion, educational income level. It can happen to anyone, anywhere. And it may actually be accompanied by depression or other mental health challenges, mood disorders, obsessive compulsive disorder, addictions, eating disorder, and psychotic disorders as well. The main thing to remember is that the longer it goes unrecognized and more so untreated, the more disruptive it is to the person who's suffering, the more disruptive it is to those relationships, and the more resistant to treatment that person who's experiencing it may become. Adolescents may begin to self-harm for different reasons, and that's usually where we see it, is in adolescence. Many adolescents who are choosing to self-harm are struggling with pretty powerful emotions, and that self-harm gives them a sense of relief. Also, self-harm provides a sense of control over things that in an adolescent's life, oftentimes they feel that they don't have control. It can start as pretty impulsive behavior, and then the more that they do it and the longer it goes on, the harder it is to stop. Some adolescents who are self-harming are also struggling with other urges, other obsessions, and other compulsive behaviors as well. So the warning signs of self-harm. So the most common forms of self-harm are cutting, cutting on the arms, hands, legs. It is less common, but sometimes it does happen on the face, the abdomen, chests. Some adolescents actually even burn or scald themselves. Others may inflict blows on their bodies or bang themselves against something. Other forms may include scratching, picking, biting, scraping, and even inserting sharp objects under the skin or swallowing harmful substances. Forms of self-injury that we don't hear a lot about sometimes include people and adolescents specifically pulling out their hair, sometimes their eyelashes, or in terms of obsessive compulsive disorders, we may see situations in which adolescents are scrubbing themselves to clean themselves so hard that it might break the skin. So moving on to some plans for home and at the school related to self-harm. So at the school, when we're on campus, it's important for parents to understand that the school social workers and counselors will always assess for safety, especially if those warning signs that we just discussed are raised or noticed. We'll refer to a nurse. We'll refer the adolescent to counseling services. And if necessary, if it becomes severe enough on campus, we'll contact the local emergency services. But ultimately, what the school social worker is going to do is help to create a safety plan with the adolescent and with the family as needed. In terms of in the home, parents are encouraged to really talk to their children about what it means to respect and value your body. Parents should serve as role models for their adolescents and children by not engaging in self-harm acts themselves or negative talk about their bodies. Evaluation by a mental health professional is really the best way to identify and treat any underlying causes for self-harm or self-injury. If the parent becomes aware of feelings or an adolescent may be experiencing feelings of wanting to die or to hurt themselves, they really should, as discussed, seek professional care right away. A child or an adolescent psychiatrist can also diagnose and treat serious mental health disorders that may accompany self-injurious behavior.
Here we'll be talking about different terms related to suicide. First, we have suicide, the act or an instance of taking one's own life voluntarily and intentionally, a death caused by self-directed injurious behavior with intent to die as a result. Next, we have suicidal ideation, thinking about or planning suicide. Lastly, for the purpose of this slide, we have suicide attempt, a non-fatal, self-directed, potentially injurious behavior with any intent to die as a result of the behavior. A suicide attempt may or may not result in injury. Suicide is the second leading cause of death in the United States among people ages 10 to 34. On this slide, we have warning signs of suicide. The behaviors listed below may be some of the signs that someone is thinking about suicide. For example, making a plan or researching ways to die, withdrawing from friends, saying goodbye, giving away important items, or making a will, taking dangerous risks such as driving extremely fast, displaying extreme mood swings, eating or sleeping more or less, using drugs or alcohol more often. There are some suicide prevention hotlines listed here on this slide as well.
That concludes this presentation, but we wanted to share some resources with you. So first and foremost, we wanted to share the crisis hotline that you may call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it is a 1-800 number. You can also text LA to 741-741, and you can get immediate support if you believe that your child or any adult is at risk of attempting suicide. And additionally, we have a few resources for adults in depression on psychiatry.org, just more information about that, as well as kids and depression, and this is through the nemorskidshealth.org website. And then lastly, how to support your child who is engaging in self-harming behaviors. So here are some resources. We do want to remind you to please contact the school to speak to myself, the school social worker, or our school counselors if you need additional support. Here is my email. And we just want to thank you so much for watching this video and joining us with the topics that we've been providing for our families. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or give me a call at the school site as well. Thank you, and we hope you have a great, happy holiday.